So, this happened to me a few years ago in April, and I still can't shake off how terrifying and strange it was. I was home alone, getting ready for my college class that morning, and I opened my blinds to let some natural light in. I glanced out my window to see a man in his mid-30s wearing a baseball cap roaming around my property, with his hands on his hips, walking with a lot of weird confidence. Our yard is kind of like a cliff and looks over onto our 5 acres of property down below. I live in the PNW, so it's a pretty scenic view. I was really confused and thought maybe it was a worker that my mom had hired for our renovations on the house admiring the view. I'm a little bit uncomfortable at this point because the dude walks to the side of my house out of sight. I head upstairs to see him now roaming around my front yard and my driveway, looking at things, checking out my house, etc. He still hasn't seen me at this point. I call my dad and ask him if we have hired anyone to come by the house, and he says not that he knows of and tells me he's going to call my mom and ask her, and then call me back. I'm waiting for the call when I notice this strange dude's car. It's a white Honda with no license plates, just parked parallel to my front door. The man still hasn't seen me, and he's still wandering around, so I take this as an opportunity to remember that we have a security system, and I armed it, so if he did try to break in, it would immediately alert the police. If this was some sort of professional or worker, he would have rung my doorbell or knocked at least once. He did neither. Just then, I get a call back from my dad saying neither him nor my mom hired anyone to come by today, and that I need to call our local police station immediately. I went back downstairs after making sure to lock every door and window upstairs and called my city's police station. I explained to a woman on the other end what is happening, and she decides that she's not going to send an officer out and instead gives me a number to call their emergency dispatch line and told me to talk to them. I call the number she gave me and immediately get an automated message saying, "Thank you for calling my town's name non-emergency hotline. Nobody is available to take your call right now. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. At this point, I'm really irritated because 15 minutes have passed, and this weird dude is still lurking around my house while I'm home alone, and apparently that wasn't enough to warrant an emergency to the lady I called at my local police department. I hung up and decided to call 911. After getting in touch with the operator, I was asked a series of questions about his appearance before they would even alert officers near me to start heading toward my house. The whole thing seemed really weird. Nobody was in a hurry to have officers come up to my place when I was a younger girl home alone with a strange man. I asked the officer if I could stay on the line with her when she finally, after what seemed like forever, alerted police to come to where I was. She agreed, and I went back upstairs to check on the weird guy, and he's now sitting in his unplated Honda either listening to a radio show extremely loudly or on a phone call with someone through his car. It was a very prominent loud male voice coming from his car. Then all of a sudden, I hear the tone you hear when someone hangs up on you, and the operator was no longer on the line. I was really confused when my thoughts were interrupted by an unrecognized phone number calling me. I assumed it was the operator calling me back, so I picked it up. Instead, I was greeted by really creepy heavy breathing. I'm not sure whose it was, but it really freaked me out. I hung up immediately and dialed back 911. I had been pretty calm up to this point, but that phone call put me in panic mode. I got on the phone with another operator who already knew my situation and address before I even could explain it to her. She said the cops were on their way. 20 minutes had passed at this point. The dude is still here in his car and the cops aren't. Keep in mind I live in a smaller town, so there is no reason why it took the cops as long as it did to come down. Finally, this guy is leaving my driveway right as the cops pull in, and they stop him and ask him a few questions. A cop then comes to my door and hands me a sketchy-looking flyer saying, "It was just a landscaper. He said he had an appointment." I was really relieved and irritated that it was just a dude my mom had hired, until I realized it wasn't. I called my mom back and said, "The cop said it was just a landscaper that you hired and that he had an appointment." My mom replies with, "I can assure you we never hired a landscaper. We don't even need one." It was the middle of the afternoon on a bright and sunny day in an upper-middle-class residential neighborhood in Australia, in which crime is virtually non-existent, peak suburbia. The neighborhood was filled with retirees and rosy-cheeked couples with young kids, so I was basically the biggest degenerate this sterile place had to offer, being a disheveled-looking, skateboarding, weed-smoking teenager. Anyway, it's about 3 p.m., and I'm home alone in my room smoking some weed when I hear random rattling noises coming from downstairs. Instantly, I felt anxious and froze because my parents were out of the state at this time, so I knew it couldn't be them coming home. I slowly approached my bedroom door to hear better, and now I hear voices having a conversation downstairs. Maybe it was my uncle or cousins. I then distinctly remember hearing someone say something like, "Save some for me." Now I definitely knew something was seriously wrong. It seemed like they thought no one was home, so I still had the element of surprise. I backed slowly into my room again, closed the door, and called the police. I had barely been on the phone with them for 30 seconds when I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. The next few moments seemed like they happened in a blur of slow motion, but it also felt like it was over in seconds. I heard them ransack all the other rooms upstairs and then saw two masked intruders open my door and enter my room. First, they snatched my phone off me and hung up on the cops. They started shouting at me to stay on the bed and don't fucking move. They were two skinny males who only looked a couple of years older than me. One of them was brandishing a screwdriver to threaten me with, and saying he'd hurt me if I moved. Then he started screaming at me, asking where the money was, where the drugs were, etc. Basically anything of value to these two junky low-life scumbags. They definitely looked tweaked out on meth or some type of speedy amphetamines. Being high as fuck on weed myself made everything seem so surreal, like it wasn't really happening. It also kicked my anxiety into absolute overdrive, and there literally felt like there were alarms and sirens going off in my head. They also snatched my laptop and some other valuable-looking shit and kept screaming at me not to move, stay on the bed, and asking where the money was, etc. I basically told them I didn't know shit and to please leave me alone. They were so methed out I don't even know if they heard me. They just kept screaming for money and drugs. After they had ransacked all my drawers and were satisfied they'd taken anything of value, they swiftly fucked off down the stairs and out of the house. I was still sort of in shock and disbelief, but I heard an engine rev and looked outside my window to see a white Mercedes, which was later revealed to be stolen from a house down the street just minutes before they hit my house, speed off up the street. I sort of slowly walked around my house, looking at the damage they'd done and the mess they'd left. The house was torn apart. I then quickly got my shit together and grabbed the landline to call my parents out of state and let them know what just happened. They obviously made sure I was okay and told me to call the police right now, so I did. They showed up not long after and started questioning me, taking statements, etc., and thankfully ignored the reek of weed smoke in my room. The last thing I needed was getting arrested for possession after my house just got broken into. Good guy cop. Anyway, the guy with the screwdriver had dropped it on the floor of my room while snatching my shit, and they were able to get fingerprints off that, and they eventually both ended up in jail like they should. There are also a few other notable parts of this story that highlight how fucked up these junkies were. Firstly, at the first house they hit, they ran into the family dog attacking them, and there is CCTV footage of them stabbing the dog in the eye, blinding him. Secondly, at my house, they grabbed a bunch of gold medals from my dad's high school athletics days that looked expensive but weren't actually worth anything, except extreme sentimental value to my dad. Lastly, after my house, while they were driving up the street, they literally snatched a bag from an old lady on the sidewalk before wandering off for good. I just wanted to make those last points to highlight just how worthless and scummy they are. It was around 6 p.m. in November 2018. I'm from England, meaning it was already pitch black outside at this time of the year. I had just got home from work and was sat in my room upstairs, just watching YouTube on my laptop. My mum shouted up to me that she was just going to pick my brother up from work and would be stopping off at the petrol station on the way back, so she would be gone for a little bit and asked if I wanted to come. I said no and carried on with my video. I heard her close the front door and pull out of the driveway. I was 17 at the time, so being home alone at night was nothing new to me, and I was used to the eerie feeling of it. But after around 10 minutes, I started hearing noises coming from downstairs. At first, I thought nothing of it and just related it to my cat noisily searching for food in an empty bowl, until I remembered him sitting at the end of my bed. I paused my video and listened more at the sound of banging on the back door. This instantly creeped me out, until it was followed by the sound of keys jangling, and I just thought, oh, my mum must have just dropped my brother off before going to the petrol station, and he's just trying to go outside. So I let the noise continue as I kept watching my video. He can get quite angry sometimes, so the loud banging was nothing out of the ordinary, but it just kept carrying on, banging and the sounds of keys jangling, then dropping, then banging again. Then the fear really hit me. I don't think it's him. I walked out of my room slowly and sat on the stairs, listening carefully to the noise. It definitely wasn't him. I'm a very anxious person, and everyone gets those times late at night when they hear noises and immediately think the worst. This was just one of those, I told myself. So I decided to bite the bullet and just walk straight into the kitchen and face whatever it was causing the noise. Our kitchen has the door straight to the garden. But as I turned the corner into the kitchen, I heard a loud bang and clatter of footsteps run away. The cat flap had been ripped off the door, and there was plastic from it everywhere. In fear, I still tried to console myself into thinking it could be anything other than people breaking in. I sat back on the stairs and called my mum just to check again that it wasn't my brother home early and just in a bad mood. But then he answered my mum's phone while still in the car. "Are you at home?" I shouted at him. "No." Then my voice started to break with terror. "Please be serious. Are you at home right now?" "No. What do you want?" Even though he said he wasn't, I still begged in my mind that he was joking just to get a scare out of me, but he heard how scared I was and began to worry. I explained to him what happened, and he started to scream at me to call the police. He's never been the protective type, but I could tell now he was really worried and told my mum to rush back home straight away. While dialing 999, I tried so hard to stay calm. I told them exactly what was happening as I hid back in my room with the door tightly locked. Then I heard talking and the banging of doors again downstairs. They were back. I burst into tears to the dispatcher out of pure fear and sat on the phone for what felt like forever until my mum, brother, and police all pulled up at the same time. Everyone charged through the house to the back door, and we instantly saw what they'd done. The people saw the keys to the back door on the side in the kitchen, took a broom from outside, broke it in half on the door handle, got the broom through the cat flap, knocked the keys off the side, and pulled them through the cat flap. Although out of pure luck, as they broke the broom in half, they also managed to snap off the door handle, making it impossible for it to be opened from the outside. Otherwise, they would have got in no questions asked, and I would have been sat quietly in my room completely oblivious. It was clear afterward that they had been watching the house for a while, waiting until the exact moment they saw my mum's car pull out of the drive. I'm not sure if they knew I was there alone or not, but I know that after they initially saw me and ran away, they made a choice to come back.